it's Jennifer J with Moving Forward. Thanks so much for joining me again today. Hey, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my story. So I know some of you have watched from the beginning, so you'll be all caught up. If you haven't, it's not too late. You can go to the top toolbar and click on videos, and it'll give you all of them and not just the last few. So start at number 1 and just watch through and you'll see the whole story. So today is going to be out of Daniel, the book of Daniel. And if you know anything about Daniel, you might have heard the story, Daniel in the lion's den, right? So, Daniel loved God and wasn't afraid of the king. He was like, my God is bigger, so do what you got to do. And he went in the lion's den and he came out alive. And King Nebuchadnezzar was just sure that his God was God, and he set him as a ruler over Babylon. And so Daniel then requested that he would have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego set over the province, the affairs of the province of Babylon. And so the king granted that. Well, he also set up, not Daniel, but the king, set up a golden image, and he had this golden image made, and he made a decree that everybody had to bow down to it whenever the music played or whatever, whenever they heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music. Then they would have to fall down and worship the golden image that the king had set up, right? So the Jews were not going to do that. They were not going to bow down to a false god, right? So they continued to go about their business. They continued, like Daniel, they'd said, nobody can pray except to these false gods, and Daniel continued to pray to God, and that's why he got thrown in the lion's den, because he disobeyed the king. But now they're saying, whenever you hear this music, you have to bow down. And these 3 Jewish boys said, no, we're not going to do that. So they just didn't. So now this is all in chapter 3 of Daniel, which is Old Testament if you don't know. But they did not bow down, and so they got told on, right? Somebody ratted them out and said they're not doing it. And so they had to go before the king, and the king said, bow down now or you're going to get thrown in the fiery furnace. And they said, do what you got to do. That's a paraphrase, that's not in the Bible. But they did say in chapter 3, verse 17 and 18, it says, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which you have set up. So they said, even if you throw us in there, even if you throw us in there, our God can save us from that. And even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow down to your gods, because we know that our God has a really good reason if he doesn't save us from it, right? So they trust God, no questions. They will die for him. So then Nebuchadnezzar says, because he's ticked off, he tells them to heat up the furnace even hotter. And so when they do, even the people, the men that threw them into the furnace burned up, obliterated, right? But they went in and they weren't burning. And he threw 3 in, and when he looked, he could see 4. Jesus was in there with them. And when he brought them out, they didn't even smell like smoke. There was nothing burned on them, and they didn't even smell like smoke. So that is what our God can do. So about 3 years ago, I had determined, it might have even been longer than that, but I know for sure at least 3 years ago, I had determined that on this particular day in 2024, I was going to go get a tattoo. Okay, I've never had a tattoo, y'all. I never wanted to get a tattoo. I never thought I would have a tattoo. But I won't go into all the backstory about my personal life, but something had happened that I decided on this particular day, to commemorate this particular day, I was going to go get a tattoo. And so I have been looking at tattoos. I've been on Pinterest, you guys, wasting hours and hours of time looking at tattoos. I had so many different ideas, right? I had the logo for my channel, which is the compass. I had a compass kind of also with a clock for the time. I had a phoenix, because Phoenix, and also a rise, right? And Phoenix rises again. So all of the things, right? And so many that I just kept looking at and couldn't decide. And then finally, about 3 weeks ago, I think, something completely different caught my attention, and I knew that that's what I wanted. And it was the words, even if. And it was out of Daniel 18. Even if he doesn't, we won't serve your idols. And I thought to myself, I'll obey him, even if, fill in the blank, right? Even if this happens, or even if he asks this. And that's a hard thing, but it's a good reminder, because I don't always hit the mark, right? I've done a lot of things that he's asked, and sometimes not when he's asked. Sometimes I've been stubborn and gone my own way. But it's a good reminder constantly to go, even if. And so it reminds me of a commitment card that the church had us take. You could sign it or not sign it, but they had us take it because it was good to think about. And I did actually sign it eventually. It took me a while. But it said, anytime, anywhere, anything, anytime, anywhere. And that was like, yeah, can God ask you anything, anytime, anywhere? And that's hard. I mean, it's easy to knee-jerk reaction say yes, but it's hard when he asks you hard things, right? I mean, it's awkward to walk up to a stranger and say something that sounds like it's off the wall, but you feel like God's told you to go say that thing, but then they respond with tears because they had just prayed a thing that you didn't know, and then you came and said that, and it was like confirmation of their prayer. But it's hard when you're standing in the grocery store and God says, go walk over to that person and say this thing. Like, weird things can happen. Or when he asks you to move 1,200 miles away from your family, right? I mean, he can ask hard things, and he does, but it's for a good reason, and there's going to be so many more treasures in heaven because of it. And so what was interesting, so I knew that this day was coming, and I knew that this was my tattoo. And so last Sunday at church, Pastor Mackey actually preached on this. And so I was so excited, and I'll attach it in here because I'm not going to have time to go over all of it with you. But real quickly, he gave 3 H's. He said, you're going to have haters, you have to go higher, and there was another H. It wasn't holy. Now I'm not going to remember it. Haters, higher, and something else that I'll remember later, and I'll put it in the notes. But it was saying, because if you skip forward in chapter 3 to verse 30, it says, then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So first, he's ticked off at them enough that he's going to kill them, and he throws them alive into a burning hot furnace. And then they come out, and he promotes them. They were already over the province of Babylon. I don't know what was next, but because then Daniel was over them. So I don't know what they got to do, but they got promoted. So Pastor was saying, you're going to have haters. The Chaldeans did not like them. They did not like the Jews. They did not like that they weren't bowing down. You're going to have people that don't like how you act when you're a Christian. You're going to have people that don't understand. You're going to have people that say bad things about you and give bad reports about you and all those things. That's going to happen. And then he said you have to go higher because you have to rise above all that. You can't give in to the temptations. He said temptation plus God equals a win, because you're going to be tempted, but if you have God, God can get you out of that temptation. He'll make a way out every time. And so, it had to be scary for them. I bet their knees were knocking. I mean, it's awesome that they were heroes and stood up for God, but it had to be frightening to know that's the furnace right there, and I can feel the heat clear over here, and I'm getting ready to go in. That had to be frightening. And so it is scary, but you have to rise above, and you have to say, anytime, anything, anywhere, and even if. So you have to go higher. And then I wish I could remember the last H, because I don't, and it's on my phone notes, and so I can't look at it here, and I didn't write it down, but I will put it on the description so you can go and see that. And if you watch the video that I'm going to attach, you can see it there too. But he was just saying, you have to do these things in order to be anointed. And so Nebuchadnezzar didn't like what they did, but he ended up promoting them. He promoted them to a higher position. And if you want to be promoted to a higher position, whether it's in your family, respect, whether it's at work, actual physical promotion of a job, whether it's your finances, whatever it is, the only way promotion comes is when you trust God. And so you have to do the hard things. And the only way you're going to hear from God is if you're in His Word. So he's not just, I won't say he's not, because he did talk to Saul on the road to Damascus. He did. But you have to be in His Word, seeking Him most of the time. He can get your attention no matter what, obviously, if He wants to. But if you want to hear from Him and get to know Him, you need to read His Word. You need to know it, learn it, obey it. That's the main thing, obey it. And talk to Him and listen. Listen, you guys. Listen for what He's saying to you. And I know that you will be glad you did. And I can't wait to hear from you, to hear all about it. So be sure and comment and let me know. Give a like, share this video or the channel with somebody, and I would love to connect with you. So I will see you next time. And my tattoo, I did get it done. I got it done in Phoenix. Oh, I didn't tell you the best part. As Pastor Mackey says, this is my second close. So I was looking for a tattoo artist, right, in Phoenix. I know lots of them in Kansas, but I didn't know who to go to in Phoenix. So I put it out on Facebook and just said, who knows a tattoo artist that they recommend? Because there are bad ones. And Tammy Webb, I don't know if you guys remember Tammy Webb. If you've been watching, you might. She is the co-founder of OCJ Kids. And so, the ministry God gave me when He sent me here, when I was still in Kansas, and He introduced me to OCJ Kids. Tammy was the only one that responded, and she said, my brother is a tattoo artist in Phoenix. Look at God. When I went and I got to talk to Wes, he did my tattoo. I was terrified. I was petrified, you guys. I did not want to do it. I wanted to do it, but I was afraid of how bad it was going to hurt. And then afterward, he said, so how do you know my sister? And I got to share my story. I was so excited, you guys. At the end of it, he was so wowed, and he said, I thought you were just going to say, you go to church together. I didn't know that, it was going to be such an amazing story. And so that was so good, and I was so excited to be able to share that with him. So God just keeps connecting me to people, and it's just so amazing. So I'm just excited. Go God. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.